Who gives a fuck? Who gives a fuck? Who gives a fuck?
Cheers. Welcome to the first episode of
Who gives a fuck?
We're going to be exploring the future of society through the eyes of young people.
So who gives a fuck about young people? For the first time ever in 20 years, the government have just announced the first ever cuts in education. So clearly the government don't give a fuck.
Do brands give a fuck, really? I mean, we're seeing some brands that are doing some great work, but most of the people that I'm seeing in the campaigns that I'm looking at kind of don't. They're just very materialistic. What is the purpose?
It's almost like most brands probably don't even understand young people. I think that's something that's quite clear, is they try and sell products or they try to sell a lifestyle, but they don't really understand what many young people are going through.
So if the government's not, should the brands? The brands are the ones who are really trying to access the youth culture at the moment. They have the ability to. They have the ability to spend lots of budget on changing people's lives. And what do we know? When you change someone's life, they'll be your biggest ambassador. That surely is a big enough incentive to be able to, start thinking about ways that you're going to start progressing people rather than just feeding them with materialistic ideas. There's a lot of brands in the world, though, I think, that are doing great work. Levi's, the campaign that they've done with Skepta recently, which is providing value for misfortunate areas, people that need help and who want to be inspired by music. Do you know what? I saw that. Hands up. Fair enough, Levi.
Even like the House of Vans is a great example. Like these are brands that are creating new platforms for young people where they've got a space where they can actually exist. And again, going back to the government, making cuts in youth centres, it almost feels like there's a role for brands to come in and fill that gap. But you almost need to ask the question, do they actually give a fuck about what young people are looking for and what they need? It's such a transparent world that we live in where you can see what is happening on the other side of the world right now. It's not just a UNICEF advert that's going to open your eyes to the inequality that we live in, that you are getting this sort of rise of in a sense, this sort of socially conscious and socially aware group of young people that a lot of the time brands kind of ignore this. And you get an example like Pepsi, who released this advert, where it's kind of almost feels like they're mocking or trying to take advantage of this concept of political activism, yet they just miss the mark so much.
Whereas they had the opportunity to make a real statement. If they wanted to and they did it right, with the right talent and the right, everything about that campaign was done in the right way. I mean, it's a very sensitive topic, but if they'd used the right talent, if they'd used the right sort of shots, if it was done with real purpose, similar to, a great one that I saw was the Kenko advert, which was supporting those who have been succumbed to gang violence. Like that, for me, I watch that advert every time and I think, do you know what? That is what it's about. Solve an issue, solve a problem.
Yeah, it's true. Don't just latch onto an idea and create a shit advert that means nothing to society. Actually find a way to make a difference. And I think you're right, that Kenko advert was a great example where they picked up on something and they created a great bit of content around it, but deep down the actual initiative matters most. And it feels like there is a space where it's about advertising and CSR kind of coming in the middle and actually not wasting your money on irrelevant messaging, but actually developing a bit of a purpose and creating some reason for your brand to exist, because we do live in a very difficult, changing world at the moment, and it's not the world we lived in 20 years ago, and so I think things like that.
Having CSR is an interesting one. Not having it, it is a mandatory thing for a lot of corporations, but why does it have to be separate to what your marketing budget is? Like, CSR is great, you should be doing it, and every company that has a big impact should be really thinking about what changes they can make to better the world. But at the same time, that needs to be done in their marketing strategy as well. It's a big part of our thinking. I think that's why we created the manifesto that we have, to really help shape and give every campaign that we do a very, very clear purpose. We don't want to be creating campaigns that really have no purpose in society anymore. It's not about that. Let's create campaigns that are really going to be pushing boundaries and changing people's lives. I mean, one of the big ones that we want to do, one of the points of our manifesto is to support culture. Support culture is the fundamental core of any great campaign, because if you do that, as I've said before, you support culture, you support people, you will change their lives and you will help them grow. When you help people grow, they will be your biggest ambassadors. I can't say that enough. It's what I tell all my clients. Let's do this. Let's change people's lives.
You know, who gives a fuck about young people? You know, many people don't.
I do.
But one thing that I'm really passionate about is I don't feel like we can wait for the government to help young people. We have to do it ourselves in a way. And so, you know, we created this platform called Loud Futures, for example, where we basically go to youth centres and we install music studios. And it's through these music studios that we can then teach young people about business and creativity, and instead of relying on education to really give them the skills that they need, we think we can do that ourselves. But it's only through then the mutual collaborative support from brands and from governments that we can take it to the next level. But you know, who really gives a fuck about young people? And it's such an interesting question to think about, why you need to care about the next generation, because they are going to be the future leaders. They are going to be the ones that have the ideas and have the vision for what society can look like.